Okay, what you'll see up on my screen are all the pieces that I used to make this card. And if you can hear my dogs barking in the background, sorry about that. But anyway, these, as you can see, the gnomes and the patterns are from Creative Fabrica, and I'll link them below for you. However, you can get images from anywhere that you'd like. Get any images you like, but I'll just use these because I have them. So I'm going to move this over out of the way and move this over also. Hopefully. There we go. And I'm going to ungroup this so I can tell you a little bit about what I have here. So this is the base of the card. Notice that it has to be cut in certain places and score lines in certain places. I'm going to teach you how easy it is to do this. So let me bring up the information that I have, and you can actually get this sheet of paper. I'll have it linked for you down below as well. Okay, here's the paper I'm talking about, and if you look at the very bottom of it, you'll see that I've given special thanks to Julie at thepaperpixie.com. Years ago when I first made this, that's where I got the dimensions that she used, and I used her dimensions. So there's some information up here on this that you'll get if you download this, but we don't really need that. So what I'm going to do is just take the knife tool right now and get rid of this. Okay. Cut that in half and get rid of this piece. And I guess I'll probably even just get rid of some of this. What I'm trying to do is just make it a little bit more streamlined. So when I make this larger, it's not going to take up as much space. So you can see it more easily. Okay, before I make this larger though, the first thing it says is to cut the base 10.5 inches by 5.5. So the first thing I'm going to do is just draw a rectangle, any size, and come up here with the lock unlocked, and I'll make its width 10.5 or 10.5, and I'll make its height 5.5. Perfect. Okay, well notice obviously it's not going to fit on my sheet. So I'm going to come over here to the page setup panel, and if you'll notice, I do have mine set up for my portrait machine because I like that little guy. And I have my cutting mat as my portrait and letter size. So I could spin this around if I want to, like this, hold down my shift key and it'll, whoopsie, shift, and it will spin it automatically and kind of jerk it into place like that. Put it in here. But I don't want to have to go ahead and do my lines with this thing sideways. So I'm going to change my orientation from portrait to landscape, and it's important that you do this no matter what size mat you're using. So now I've got to put my piece on here again, rotate it again so it fits. Okay, whoops, let me see, did I get that proper? There we go. So you let go of your mouse first and then your control or your shift button, and you won't have it jerk. I am going to take off the print border and the cut border because I don't need those. And I'm pretty much done with this, other than now I need to fit this back on here. But I don't need to do this manually, and it's actually better if I don't do it manually because I need this rectangle to be smack dab up here in the upper left-hand corner. So to do that, I'm going to change my x-axis, the x right here, to 0. And I'll hit enter so you can see what happens. Did you see what that happened? It popped it right over to the exact side of this page. And now I'm going to change the y-axis. And watch what happens when you change that to 0. First, take a guess. What do you think is going to happen? Yep, it's going to pop it right up to the top. Whoops, I have to hit enter though. There we go. So that's exactly what we need right now. All right, now, these instructions tell us how to score this base card. So we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4 score lines. So I'm going to come over here to the line tool, and I'm going to hold down my shift key so it's nice and straight, and just draw a line down here. And I'm going to make it go down below the bottom of the rectangle right now because it will be much easier for me to work with right now. When I have that one selected, I'm just going to hit Control D to duplicate it, and Control D and Control D. That means duplicate it. Okay. So now what I can do is I can move these over a little bit out of the way. I'll move these 3 over to the side. And what I could do now too, if I want to, is I could change this line into a dotted or dash line, which would be a score line, like that. And I could do it to these others as well. And I'll change those into score lines. Okay. So again, let's look right over here. It says, score the base at 1.75 inches. All right. So we're going to grab this first score line. And right now, if you'll look up here at the X and the Y coordinates, the Y here is at the very top. It says 0. And what does it say we want the X to be? We want it to be 1.75 inches over from the left. So I'm going to change this to 1.75. And when I hit enter, watch that score line pop right into position. Perfect. That's exactly where we need it to be. All right, this one right here, I'm going to click on it to highlight it or to select it. Whoops, I didn't mean to do it like that. And now if you'll notice, this one is not at the very top, right? The Y is how far up or down it is. So I'll change that to 0 and hit enter. Popped it right at the top. And let's look over here at the score line. This one should be 3.5 inches. So my X, right now, this is at about the 8-inch mark. And look, it truly is. And it says so right here. But we really want it to be at the 3.5-inch mark. So I'm going to change this to 3.5. It's not going to move until I hit enter. So look at this ruler up here, and you can see that indeed this little score line has been moved perfectly to the 3.5-inch mark. Now some people I know, like I believe Nancy, likes to just drag hers over, but I prefer to move mine like this because my hands don't drag it perfectly. So I'm going to click on this one. Again, I want it at the very top, so I'm going to say 0 for how far down from the top I want it to be. And this third one over is supposed to be at the 7-inch mark. Look where it is right now, 8.5. We want it to be at 7. So I'll hit enter, pop, right at the 7-inch mark. And then this last one, we want that at the 8.75. So I need to change the Y again to make it pop to the top, 0. And I'll make the X 8.75, enter. Okay, now those are all perfectly aligned. The other thing that we could do is click on that one, hold down your shift, and click on all of these. And if I want to now, what I could do, remember the height of these was supposed to be, of our rectangle was supposed to be 5.5. So I can change this right here, the height to 5.5, and hit enter. And now they're the exact size they need to be and exactly where they need to be. So I'm going to, I'm going to grab all of this and group it so they stay put. So we finished this first thing. Now the next thing says, let's get rid of this. Okay, it says start at the first score line on the left-hand side. So here's the first score line on the left-hand side. And down 1.5 inches from the top to create a cut line that ends at the first score line on the right-hand side of the card. This cut from here to here will be 7 inches long. So I'm going to get my line tool here, and I'm going to try to start right here. Just try. Hold down my shift key and draw a line that kind of goes over to there. Okay. So now with that selected, I can come up here first of all and change its width if I want to, because that's how wide it said it would be, to 7 inches, and hit OK. So we have this line here. Got to select it again. I shouldn't have unselected it. There we go. And it says we want it to start. Oh, let's get that little diagram. No, I don't have it here. We want it to start, let's look what it says, 1.5 inches down from the top. So if you'll recall, the y-axis is the one that goes from the top to the bottom, and you can see that in that little blurb I have there. So I'll make this 1.5 and hit enter, and it moved it. And we want it to start, if you remember where this one was, the first score line was at 1.75. So we want to change this, the x-axis, to 1.75 and hit enter. So now that is perfectly where we need that cut line to be. And it should be exactly 7 inches long. If we can grab it again, it is. And it starts at the first score line, and remember that was at 1.75. So we changed this x-axis to 1.75. And it says to have it 1.5 inches down from the top. 1.5. So this might seem really confusing to you guys, but honestly, if you just stop the video and work through it with me, you'll find that it's not that bad. Okay, so let's go ahead and duplicate this one. So I'm just going to hit Control D for duplicate, Control and D, and that makes the second one. And I'll just use my down arrow to start bringing that down. Now notice it's already the right width of a line, but it's certainly not where it should be. So let's see what it says for the second one. Okay, number 2, start at the first score line on the left-hand side of the card and 4 inches down. So we've got this guy already ready to go. Remember, it's the y-axis that shows how far up and down we'll go. And the directions say to put it 4 inches down. So I'll change this to a 4 and hit enter. And now it's at the right distance down, but notice it's not starting at the first score line. You see that? It's not over there all the way, and it goes too far over this way. So I want to click on that to get it highlighted again. Sometimes you have to putz around with that to get it. Okay, there, finally. All right, so it says to put that, start that at the first score line on the left-hand side. So again, that first score line starts at 1.75 inches. So we can make this x-axis 1.75 and hit enter. And now that should be perfect, except for this change just a little bit. I'm going to see if I can make that back to just plain 4 and make sure this didn't shift when I was playing around. This should be 1.75, enter, and this should be the y-axis should be 1.5. And the only reason why that I had to fix that was because when I was trying to grab this line, I noticed that my rectangle shifted a little bit, and that's how they got off. Okay, I'm just going to make my square white now, so it's easy to see what I'm doing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of the score lines. Now, I've not grouped this, so it should be, I don't think, oh, maybe I did group some of it. Let me ungroup. Oh. Okay, there's a score line. I guess I didn't have it grouped. Hold down my shift key, try to grab just the score lines. Okay, I have just the score lines grabbed. And sometimes, again, that's why I like to leave them longer down here, because it's much, much easier to grab the little tip of them that's hanging out down at the bottom. But what I want to do with these score lines right now is change their color, and I'll change them to a green. I usually make my score lines green, and I'm going to show you why now. So there's the score lines, they're green, and let's go ahead and assume we're going to make this thing with my little portrait. So I'll go to send, So usually it just comes in as simple. And look at this, all of these things are going to cut, which my score lines will cut like that if I leave them like this in my Cricut or my Silhouette software. But I can go to line and I can uncheck everything that's here. Notice nothing is cutting. I could just cut all the black lines first, but usually what I like to do are the score lines first. So I'm going to click on the score lines. Notice when I'm in line color, I can choose them like that. Okay, so as you can see, right now I have this on score and auto blade that's detected. And let's just check this out and see what happens if we change to this one that's going to be cardstock. Notice the force and the speed of this one. And I usually up mine a little bit because my knife's a little bit older. But let's unclick this one now. Notice it's about 6, 20, and 4. When we go to this one that I have set to score, it goes way down low in the knife depth and low in the force. So it's not actually going to cut through the paper anymore. So, like I said, the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and do the score lines. So I've got to get a piece of paper to put in my machine. And say send. So the first thing it's doing the dash lines gently because those are the score lines. I could have even just changed that to a cut line and it would have gone straight across with a very, very minimal amount of pressure. And once this is done, back up at my screen now, I'll uncheck the green because that's done. And I'll check the black, and I want that to be not score. I want that to be cut. And let's see, cardstock plain. Okay, that should about do it. Say send. And then it's going to recalibrate the blade. And it will cut now. Those are those 2 lines we put in for cuts. Okay, as you can see, it cut and folded beautifully. Now, what I would suggest that you do is just pause the video here after you've cut yours and scored it and make yours bend like mine does. Okay, so here was my prototype. And you can see this part goes up, this down. You can see how you need to fold this kind of so that when you fold it up to put it in your envelope, it looks like this. And when your recipient opens it, it looks like that. Or like this if you're doing the Halloween one, trick or treat. And it opens up just like this. And of course, it'll stand up nicely on their desk, their mantle, or wherever they'd like to have it. Okay, in this section, we can see up here, if you look at my screen, what the paper piece dimensions should be. And these are the pieces that go over here. As I said, mine are from Creative Fabrica. Get yours anywhere you'd like. I'll have them linked below in case you're interested, but you can grab your images wherever you want. So, first thing we need to do is come up here and to the page setup panel, and I want to turn my page back around to the regular way, which is portrait, because that's the way I like to work. And whoops, I might as well go ahead and grab all this stuff and group it after all that hard work I did, right? Let's move that off to the side. All right. The next thing we're going to do is start following these instructions here. So we're going to start right here where it says paper piece dimensions. So we're going to make 4 pieces that are, now this was in my first sample that I made, and that's why it says my yellow. If you download that page, well, let me bring it back in here. File, merge. If ever yours doesn't work like sometimes mine doesn't, and I'm not sure if it's because I have the video running, but when I'm going to file and merge and it's not working, see what it says to the right of that? Control, Shift, and 0 or O. If I hit Control, Shift, and O on my screen, it opens it just like as if I had done it the proper way. Then I can click on what I want to merge and say OK, and there it is. So what it's talking about, let's cut this again a little bit just so there's not this extra junk up here we don't need. All right, there we go. Whoops. Thought I cut it all the way. Yeah, I did. Got to get this tool so I can drag it off and delete it. Delete. Okay. So what it's talking about first, let's scroll in and look at this. Okay. 4 pieces at 1.5 by 1.25, my yellow. 4 pieces, my yellow. Okay, so here are the 4 pieces, my yellow, right here, 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 and here. And if you look down here at my trick or treat one, it happens to be the ones that I have the pumpkin colored, right? Okay, so let's minimize, make this smaller for right now. So again, it said 4 pieces, 1.5 inches by 1.25. So I'm going to come over here to the rectangle or the drawing tool shape, and I draw it any size I want, doesn't matter, because I'm going to make it 1.25 and hit enter by 1.5. Whoops, 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 whoops. 1.25 by the height of 1.5. Enter. All right. But actually, if I look over here, I can see that this thing is actually like this. So if I'm using an image on here that has an upside down and a right side up or whatever, I want to make sure that it goes up and down like this. Since this image, and if you look here, down here at my tabletop, it's the one where the pumpkins are, so I made sure they were all facing the proper direction. So in order to get something like that, all I did was this. I downloaded these things from Creative Fabrica. So I'll go to File and Merge. Let's see if it'll merge this time. Nope. So I got to look again. What is that merge? It's Control, Shift, and O. Control, Shift, and O, holding them all down at the same time. I want to bring in those patterns that I got from Creative Fabrica, and I've already unzipped them. It's probably this one right here. Let's look. JPEGs. Okay, yep, there they are. So I'll bring in the pumpkins again. So I'm going to merge this one. So I'll merge that one in there first. And I can try to make it small by grabbing the box, or I can lock the lock and just come up here and change its height to make it more manageable like that. So let's just do these boxes first. And what I can do now is to click on this box. If you have the business edition, or maybe it's the plus edition, designer edition plus, what you can do is click on this thing, come over here to this eyedropper on the very bottom. It says transfer properties, and I want to click on this. The properties I want to transfer are these. So there you go, just like that, right? However, those pumpkins are going the wrong way. So I need to come over here to this paint palette area, come up here to the pattern fill, and usually it opens up without the advanced options open. I need to open the advanced options and say angle the pattern. So I want to change the angle of that pattern. See what I'm doing? I'm angling it so it's right side up. And I can scale it if I want to, scale it way down, whatever I like that. So that looks pretty good to me, but you know what? Maybe I want to scale a little bit more. Okay, that looks good. All right, so if we look back here, and I can probably delete this one now, I don't need it anymore. It said 4 pieces. So what I'm going to do is just Control D to duplicate this again. Control D, Control D. So I have 4 altogether, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll just leave those like that. All right, let's see what we have to do next. 2 pieces at 1.5 by 5.25. And that's my stripe I said. So if we look up here, my stripe was this. Here and here. Or if you look on my pattern down here at the tabletop, it were these ghosts that I used from Creative Fabrica. So again, let's look at the dimensions, and it's easier if you have this printed out. But 2 pieces, 1.5 by 5.25. Well, let's minimize this down. Scroll out. 2 pieces, 1.5 by 5.25. So I can just go ahead and get the box, come over here and draw one, and then come up here, unlock the lock. I want to make it 5.25 inches tall, so that's 5.25 tall by, oh gosh, that looks so big, doesn't it? 5.25 tall by, let's look here again, 1.5 inches wide. 1.5 wide. Okay, so that's that. Now, I changed this in Creative Fabrica, so I can once again go to File and Merge, and if Merge doesn't work, which it doesn't seem to be working for some reason, I can look at the thing to the right of this. It says Control, Shift, and 0, or not 0, O. So I hold down my Control key, hold down my Shift at the same time. Also, while holding those down, hold down my O key, and that brings it open. And now I'm going to get these ghosts. Open that. And again, it comes in huge. If I want to make it more manageable, I can simply lock this lock, change this to another more manageable size. I'll change it to a 5. So here again, I have this shape. I want to change this shape and have it use this pattern. So this is the one that I can use, this eyedropper down here. Notice when I hover over it, it says Transfer Properties. Let's go again. Transfer properties of a shape to a selected shape. So I want to take this shape, I want to transfer these properties to it, and there it is, just like that. So that's perfect. I like the way those came in. And remember, I can delete this one. And how many of those did it say we needed? I'll scroll into this. We needed 2 of them. So I'll come over here, and I'll just click on this and hold down my Alt key or say Control D and duplicate, and now I've got the 2 of those that I need. Okay, the next thing we need to do, let's check. Whoops, wrong one. We need to make 2 pieces 1.5 by 2.25. So I'm going to just do this, draw a shape, a square, a rectangle, change its shape after I unlock the lock, and it's 1.5, enter, by 2.25. Enter. All right, and I say that's my pineapple. So it's really hard to see, but the pineapple, I believe, well, it's right here. These are what I'm talking about. Let's scroll back in. Okay. So it's actually the ones, if you look down here at my tabletop now, these are the ones that I made this checkered color, I think. You know, if I bring my, we should bring this back in because we can build on top of it a little bit. All right, so let's see what we have so far. Move some of this stuff around. And I'm going to go ahead and spin this so it stands the right way it needs to be. hold down my shift key so it knock into place properly. Okay, so what we have so far is this piece and this piece. And then we have these four guys that go 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we have these two pieces that's going to go right here. So on mine, what I did, if you look down here at my screen, that's where I put my little gnomes. And I wanted it to be a solid color, and I wanted it to kind of match the color scheme. So what I did was I clicked on this to highlight it, came up here to the rectangle, and got this eyedropper. So I could select that lighter yellow color of the ghosts, and then I just made a duplicate of that and brought it over here. All right, these pieces are going to be next. Let's see what they're going to be. All right, so my lemon pieces, those are the pieces down here, or the ones that I made this checkerboard if you're looking here at my tabletop. So the lemon pieces, whoops, I forgot to look what size it said they were. It says the lemon pieces are 3 1/4 by 1 1/4. So 3 1/4 by 1 1/4. So once again, I'm going to make a shape, and I'm going to unlock the lock if it's locked and make it 3.25 or 3 1/4, enter, by 1 1/4. 1.25, enter. Okay, and those, to make the checkerboard, all I did was came over here to this paint palette and came to the fill, which is the third button over the pattern fill, and we have that pattern right here. So I just put it in there, and I went to advanced if it wasn't open, and I scaled it down a little bit like that. Okay, I like that one. So I'm going to bring that over here where it belongs, and I can Control D and duplicate it. Well, it's selected, Control D, and bring it down here. Alrighty, let's see what we got. We only have one last thing pretty much to do, and that is this piece right here. So let's scroll in again so we can see what size that is. That one is 3 by 2, and that's where my sentiment goes. 3 by 2. But what I did on mine, if you look down here, was I made it black. I made my 3 by 2 inch square black. So I just cut that out of black paper. So I came over here and drew a rectangle and made it 3 inches by 2 inches and hit enter. And that was my piece that I made black, so I'll just cut that. I'm not going to print and cut a big square of black, and it goes right there. Looks like I could have made that bigger. I'll just leave it like that. So what I did on mine was I think I made it bigger than that. You know, I have mine over here. Let's look and see. Here's my black. Yes, I did make it bigger. So what I probably did on this one then, this was just the white. If you'll see down here at my tabletop again, the white where I put my gnome and my sentiment. This was the white. Okay, so I'm going to change that one to white because that one I am going to do something on. But then I also, while that was selected, I came over here to the offset panel and offset it. And I wanted it to be a square offset, so I changed the corners to corner, and I changed its color of the offset to black. So this was the black square that I cut out. And this is the square onto which I'm going to put my sentiment. And for my sentiment, let's grab all this stuff and group it now. For my sentiment, all I did was I went over to create a Fabrica. Again, get your image anywhere. I said merge. Merge is probably still not working, so as you know, I'll do Control. While I'm holding that down, hit Shift. While I'm holding those down, hit the O for open. and I need to go up to the folder in which I have those little gnomes. So it was the Happy Halloween gnomes, the unzipped one, unzipped. I got the PNGs, and I think the one I got was this one. And oh, got a highlight, oopsie. And he's going to come in huge. So I'm going to go ahead and select him again, click this to lock the aspect ratio, and make him maybe a 4 or 5, something like that. So now I really need to make him go down low, so he's going to fit on my little sentiment like that. Okay, and then I can put anything I want right here, and I simply wrote Happy Halloween. And once it was selected, I squished it down. As you'll notice on my sample, I forgot to change the color. I meant to make it black, but I forgot. So it's this blue color, but I actually kind of almost like it. So there's my text, and I'm going to group all this stuff together because I want it to just stay together and print just like this. It's going to be a print then cut, right? So we're basically ready, other than I need a circle. And I can tell you I cut out a black circle, and this circle measured 2.374. You might want to write that down, and because I found that worked perfectly. And then what I did was 2.374, and then I went ahead and offset an internal offset, and I think I just left that as it was, changed its color to white. So it ended up like that. And so this was the internal part, right? So I didn't need to worry about what size I made this circle. I just made this one the 2.374. But you may find something else that you like better. That just happened to work for me. And then I just typed in Trick or Treat, and the font that I used for Trick or Treat was one called Scary Halloween Font. You can see it over here, Scary Halloween Font. And I just got that, I believe, from dafont.com. So that pretty much shows everything, except for I need you to look down here, especially if you are using your Cameo to print and cut. I noticed the first one I did, this one right here, my sample, a little bit of my white showed on my images. So I'm not sure if you can see this. Let me put this black underneath of here, see if you can see this more clearly now. So this one right here, you probably can't tell, but there's a little smidgen of the color that cut off right here, and down here I got a little bit of the white. So then I thought, you know, I've never used the bleed before on my machine, so I turned on bleed, and I'll show you where that is. And what it does is it puts a little extra bit of the pattern, and when your machine cuts, it leaves that, so you never get any of that little white border around. So let me show you where that is real quick, and then that ends this tutorial, other than if you want to stick around with me and watch me put it together. So I'll just do this. I'm going to ungroup this now. For right now, what I need to do is to put on my registration marks if this is a print and cut. So I come to the page setup, third button over, they're off. Turn them on. So now I can start dragging these things down here and put on here as many as I think I can. Okay. When you're over here in the page setup panel, where you put on the registration marks, this is where you put on print bleed. And that's what's going to help so that you don't have any of those white lines ever show up. I just leave mine at the default. That's what I did yesterday when I first printed these out, and it turned out beautifully. So now, like I said, that ends this tutorial. Thanks so much for joining me. If you do want to hang around and watch me glue it together, feel free.